Welcome back everyone, it's Sean from Crafted Elements, and this video is going to be a big announcement about some small molds. Now, if you've been following us for a while, you know that our company specializes in molds, templates, and tools to save you time and money. But a lot of the molds we have, particularly our charcuterie board molds, tend to be on the larger side. They're 1 inches thick to about 1.5 inches thick, and they can kind of be 18 to 24 inches, even longer. Here's the issue with that. As much as that is perfect for a charcuterie board, it's kind of overkill for a cheese board. Plus, being December 2023 when I'm making this video, the economy isn't doing well as everybody would like it. So what I'm hearing from a lot of our customers is, especially at the markets and stuff, people are looking for smaller, lower cost gifts. So how do you make a smaller, lower cost gift? With a smaller, lower cost mold. Now these molds are still built in-house here at Crafted Elements, but they are a thinner wall. They're 3/8 inch thick walls, and they are a smaller profile at 3/4 inches deep. But they are perfect for making cheese boards or very small charcuterie boards. So for example, we have a 10-inch circle with a built-in handle. We have the template available and the molds. So you can use the template to create pieces out of solid wood or wooden resin, or you can use the mold to create solid resin or wooden resin pieces. We have number 2, which is also a 10-inch circle, but it has an elongated sort of stadium shaped handle to it. Number 3 is our mini free flow cheese board mold. So our free flow handle molds are really popular. Kind of got this funky, free flowing handle that goes off to the side. So this is a small version of that. And again, all these templates and matching mold. And then we have our number 4, SMB, small board. 4, it is very cool. I don't know. I'm not gonna use the word cute because that would be kind of unmanly to say, but it's cute. It's a mix of our organic handle and our warped rectangle molds. I kind of merged them together and we made the tooling for it, and I think it looks really slick. It's kind of got this flared body, which is going to be amazing for cheese boards. Now, it's all fine and dandy to introduce these things to you. Again, the templates and the molds will be available, or are available rather, now at craftedelements.com. But I'm going to go ahead and do a sample project with one of these. I'm going to select this one. I'm going to use a template to pre-cut some wood. I'm going to use the mold to take the wood and to fill it up with resin. Now again, I said these molds are 3/4 inches thick, so keep in mind if you are going to be using them for wood and resin and planing them after, you're probably going to end up with something around 5/8 inches thick at the end, which, to be honest, for a small cheese board, this is just over 5/8 inches thick. It's actually good. It's a good size. Having a small cheese board that's 1 inch or 1.5 inches thick doesn't really make sense. So 1/2 inch to 3/4 inches is really the sweet spot for these small cheese boards, which is why these molds are 3/4 inches thick. I'm gonna stop blabbing. I'm gonna grab my template, we're gonna grab some wood, and we're gonna get working on this project, and we'll show you how to use these very, very cool small cheese board molds. If you've seen me use these templates before, you know the drill here. We're gonna use a template, we're gonna grab some wood, we're gonna line it up, and we're actually gonna be able to use this template to preview what the wood's gonna look like in our mold because the templates are clear. So I've got a piece of what I think is maple. It's kind of funky looking. Obviously I need to take the bark off still, but I'm gonna go ahead and trace this out to where I want it. I could definitely integrate the handle and make that wood, but once you start integrating these very, very thin handles, it gets a little tough. So my recommendation is, if you want to keep it simple, avoid making the handles out of wood. Keep the handles in resin because they are somewhat thin. So I'm going to go ahead and trace this, and then this spot over here that's left over is what it's actually going to be filled with resin. Now the entire point of putting that line on is so we can pre-cut this wood. We want to stay away from the line, 1/8 of an inch to at most 1/4 inch. So do not cut on the line, cut away from the line, because we're going to use that template at the end with our router table to clean up this and identically mimic that template. So again, stay away from the line, use your bandsaw, scroll saw, miter saw depending on the design, or your jigsaw to cut this out. Here's where the cool part starts with the template. We're going to take our piece of wood that we've rough cut. We're going to adhere the template with hot glue, 2-sided tape, template tape, the CA glue tape method, whatever you want to use. I use hot glue. I find it's quick and easy and relatively easy to remove. Some people are a little bit more precise and will use template tape or 2A tape. whatever you want to use, it really doesn't matter as long as you get the same result, which is to hold the template securely to your wood while you run it through the router table. I'm going to grab my gun. I'm just going to put a few dabs of hot glue strategically around these areas where to make sure it's secure, and then we're going to basically line this template back up like we had it originally and trace this out close enough and apply some pressure and let it dry. Obviously hot glue dries up really quick, which is beneficial. So I've got my router table here already. This is a Craig adjustable router table, and it's very cool because it's built on my workbench, and I can just use this to raise and lower the bit. What I've got in there is a flush trim bit. It's 1/4 inches. We do sell them, but any flush trim bit that's 1/4 inches or 3/8 of an inch will be okay for these templates. So what I want to do is make sure that the bearing is riding on the template by raising it up, and I want to make sure the bearing is not on the wood. I only want the cutter part of this on the wood. I want the bearing entirely on the acrylic. So I've got that there. I'm going to lock that in place. Put my safety goggles on and turn this bad boy on. Pretty easy, right? So I'm going to grab our mold release, the Man 200, and apply this to the interior of the silicone mold. You always want to use a non-silicone based mold release when you're using a silicone mold, and make sure it's thorough enough to make sure you cover all the surfaces. I'm going to give that a few minutes to dry, but while I'm doing that and letting it dry, I'm going to pry off the wood from our template here. Pretty easy. And then I can just go like this. Scrape off all that extra glue. Very easy. Okay, so once this dries, I'm going to drop this in. You'll see just how perfect it fits because we pre-shaped it with the template. All right, so it's all dried up. Got our pre-shaped piece of wood, and check that out. Ooh, perfect fit, right? Pretty neat. Okay, so that's kind of the power of using those templates with our molds here. Now what I'm going to do is weigh this down. I'm going to estimate the amount of resin we're going to use for the balance of the mold. We're going to pour that in. Don't worry about the fact that the wood is sitting proud of the mold. This is like an inch or so thick wood slab. Obviously we've got 3/4 inches here. We're going to run it through the planer anyway, so it'll take off the difference of the height of the wood and level it out with the resin once it runs through the planer. I'm going to be using Total Bolt Thick Set for the resin pour in this project. Total Bolt supplies us with all of our resin, and I highly recommend their product. You can shop at totalbolt.com to get your own. Now we're using thick set because it is good for up to 1 inch thick. This is a 3/4 inch mold, so there'll be no problem there. To be honest, I could probably get away with using Total Bolt's tabletop resin or maker epoxy because it is such a small volume. But to play it safe, we're going to use thick set. When you're mixing this stuff, put your ventilator on, open your exhaust. I've got these big fans and exhaust and stuff, and I got to talk to you, so I'm not going to be wearing that, so please don't judge me. But realistically, if you're mixing this stuff, please wear your proper safety protection. Now, we do publish the fluid volumes for all of our molds, but once you put wood in there, it's kind of a guessing game, especially when it comes to the circular stuff. If it was a simple rectangle or square, we could estimate it by measuring cubic inches and converting that to ounces or milliliters or whatever you're using. But in this case, I'm just going to use the old eyeballs to estimate what I need. So keep it simple. It is a 3-to-1 mix, so I'm going to mix up 48 ounces, 12 ounces of hardener, 36 ounces of resin. So I'm going to find my hardener. I'm going to grab our Total mixing cup. I'm going to put on our pretend ventilator, respirator, and start mixing. Now, sorry to disappoint, but I don't do a resin mixing dance like that girl, Mikey makes over on that other YouTube channel. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut to her mixing resin so you can enjoy that. And then once we're done, we'll come back here.
Resin dance!
So we've gone over to our black diamond wall pigment, and I pulled out iridescent blue, popular, very, very vibrant blue color. And we're just going to throw some of this into the resin. There are definitely ways to properly measure this, but I never do it. I just prefer the add some more, mix it up, see what it looks like. Add some more, mix it up, see what it looks like. That's my method. Okay guys, our resin is all mixed. Our pigment is mixed in there. Very simple, pour to the top. Beauty. Got some leftover resin, don't worry, it won't go to waste. I will throw it in another mold. And we are going to let this sit overnight because you want to leave this for at least a day, day and a half for it to fully set before you take it out. Do a quick demold, just working your hands around the silicone. Being careful when you pop out the handles not to rip the mold. And there you go, we've got a nice clean mold that we can use again. And we've got this board that we can now finish. So the first step is going to be run this through our planer to get the resin and the wood nice and level. And then we can go on to sanding and finishing. Okay, so over the last few minutes of this video, you watched me finish off this board. Started off by running it through the planer to get everything nice and level. Moved over to the router table to get a nice chamfer on that. So I just used a 1/4 inch round over bit to get a curved edge instead of a flat edge on the resin and the wood. And then we started sanding, going from 80 grit, and I only brought this one up to 180 grit, which is really not that much. So the resin doesn't look perfect. You can't really see it on camera, but it's not as clear as it could be. You can definitely take this up as high as your heart desires. I just choose not to, especially if I'm just doing a demonstration like this. But realistically, if you're making this for someone, 320 grit, you know, maybe 400 grit if you're getting fancy, is probably sufficient for most of these projects. Remember that every time you go to a super high grit, you're spending way more time sanding it, and your time is money, so that has to go into the cost of the board. So particularly with these small boards like this, you know, going to 320 grit, maybe 400 or something, is probably the most you want to go, because you don't really want to spend too much more time on it to get it that much more clear. Now you may have also noticed when I was sanding that I used some water on this, and I did that because I probably should have left this in the mold for an extra day to really set up. It was set, but if you notice running through the planer, you had a little bit of some epoxy sticking and some kind of gummy marks. Same thing with sanding. It's because the epoxy isn't fully set. I've only let it set for about 18 hours, this guy, and realistically that thick set should probably sit for about at least 2 days to get it really nice and hard. But to circumvent the problems that cause, if you apply some water to the resin, it keeps it cool when you're sanding. So as soon as I applied the water, all those little gum marks, which were basically heated up plastic, heated up resin, went away. So that's just a quick trick. And the other benefit to adding water while sanding is, of course, you don't get the resin and wood dust in the air. You kind of stays on as a paste. So I'm pretty comfortable between my vacuum attachment on my sander and keeping it wet, not to wear a mask because I really don't have any particles going up in the air when it's wet like that. So after we sanded it, I applied some Total Boat wood honey, which I am now buffing off. It sits for about 5 or 10 minutes, buffs off, and then you have a beautiful finished cheese board. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this project. Now remember, the takeaway from this is if you want to build some smaller charcuterie boards or cheese boards, Craft Elements has everything you need. We've got a ton of molds, but of course we have our brand new cheese board specific size 3/4 inch deep molds, and we've got templates to match. So you can create all these designs and more. Depending on when you're watching this video, there probably will be more designs in the future, so definitely stay tuned to our website and get on our email list so you're the first to be notified. If you have any questions about what I did in this video, feel free to post in the comments below. And if you're watching here on YouTube and you haven't already subscribed to us, make sure you hit that subscribe button, click the bell, click the like, whatever you need to do. Just give us some love so you always can see what's going on here at Crafted Elements. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and as always, happy making.